Раз, два, три.
Добрый вечер.
Добрый вечер.
Добрый. А у вас как, карманные часы имеются?
Нет, у меня карманных часов не имеется, но они лежат у меня. Есть они, но они давно уже. У меня несколько часов лежит в тумбочке, так сказать, прикроватной. PlayStation, Citizen подарочный. Когда-то в 96-м году лучший продавец получил. Ну, например, про статусность, скажем, швейцарских часов я бы поспорил бы. Сейчас так много подделок, что просто людей не отличит.
Это да.
Часов то же самое. И говорить, что хвастаться этим, это определенный круг, скажем так.
Да.
Правильно?
Да.
И говорить о том, что есть престиж, да, ну, один и есть поддельный. Простой человек никогда не отличит, часов настоящий или нет.
Ага. Но у вас какие, вот, тем не менее, у вас электронные, механические, смарт?
У меня никаких, я вообще на руки часы не ношу.
Никакие.
Знаете почему? Я скажу, почему я не ношу. Не ношу их уже 40 с лишним лет.
Так.
Когда работал официантом, они мешали носить тарелки. Вот и всего лишь.
А потом привычка такая осталась.
Да, такая привычка и осталась. А часы сейчас везде есть, она в радио, в телефоне, едешь где-нибудь. Как бы плюс-минус 20 минут или 15 роли в них сыграют. На автобус или на поезд, или на самолет не опоздаешь.
Это правда. Спасибо, спасибо. Слушай, хорошее мнение прозвучало. Я даже, в общем-то, вспомнил вот из своей какой-то вот... Я был где-то там, ну, допустим, это какая-то Турция была, и там вот эти ларьки продают, вот, знаешь, как часы Радо, вот у них такой черный.
Да, швейцарские, да.
Так они там, по-моему, то ли по 5, то ли по 3 евро вообще продавались. И с виду они, ну, прямо идеально. Я там их купил штук 10 сразу. Даже носил.
Причем пары на каждой руке. Видели?
Да, они выглядели, ну, прям вот один в один. И вот сейчас, вот, когда кто-то вот с такими похожими часами, а я видел вот по телеэфиру одного политика нашего, у него вот были вот та самая модель, которая у меня вот точно такая же. Знаешь, какая у меня мысль была?
Что он тоже в этом киоске
за
купил?
3 евро купил, да.
А, братан, знаю, где взял, слушай, да.
А,
Молодец.
Да, ну давайте прервемся на песню и будем ждать ваших звонков через несколько минут.
Said that it was almost certain that this was a causal factor in her death, one of the main things that caused her to take her own life. An inquest is still due to take place that will, of course, determine the exact cause of Gunnar Beck's death. But this report describes how in October 2021, this intense 2-month period began, where her boss sent her in that month more than 1,000 WhatsApp messages and voicemails, and then in the following month, more than 3,500. Now, he'd say things like making it clear that he couldn't bear the thought of her being with someone else. He was constantly seeking reassurance that she was on her own. Now, she actually had a boyfriend, but she was just 19. She was young. She'd just started in the army when she was 16. And, of course, she didn't want to upset him. This was her boss. And her mum actually said in an interview, she's been asked so many times, why didn't she just block him? Of course she didn't. Of course she didn't, because she didn't want to upset this man who was her boss. Now, he would also always ensure that they were working together because he was the one who would delegate her tasks as well. He was directly responsible. And she had also been scared that he was tracking her movements via her phone. The week before her death, he also found that she had left the hotel staying on the work trip, and she left and went and called her father and asked to be collected by a friend who found her trembling and shaking as a result of his behaviour. Exactly what happened is unclear, but she left that hotel as a result of his behaviour and had to be collected by a friend. Now, she tried to tell him eventually that she felt trapped by his actions, that her family were worried. She said she was struggling to deal with it, it was weighing heavily on her. And after trying to be understanding and initially regarding him as a friend, she eventually worked up the courage to tell him how she was feeling. But in December 2021, it was found that she had sadly taken her life at her base, and this is found to have been a major factor in it.
And as you say, the inquest isn't complete yet, so we'll await its findings. But even, say, if you just set her case to one side, what you said there about, and this is a subject very close to my heart because of the stalking experience I had and the podcast I made about stalking and harassment, because his texts alone were harassment. When you say, of course she didn't block him, and I completely understand why her mother would say that, because she was in a work situation and needed to not anger her boss. But the second that is your mentality about your workplace, you're in deep trouble at any age, but especially if you're 19, and you need to immediately, we need to train young people, I think, to immediately elevate the problem with a trusted person, and which she did with family and with friends, and many other people will as well. But we've got to have better systems of when somebody puts their hand up and says, please help me here, this is very bad. You and I have had bosses over the years, It is a given that 1,000 or 3,000 messages from them is deeply inappropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is some explanation in the report about why she maybe also felt that she couldn't say anything, because she had been sexually assaulted by another senior member of staff a few months before. That happened late at night in a bar at an army training centre. Her mum's since spoken about it because she described the impact to her mum. She said that she was approached by a man who put his hands between her legs and tried to grab her from around the neck. She shouted, "Get off me, sir," and went and slept in her car that night. Now, it was reported what had happened to her, and the report's actually come back. It's investigated that incident as well. It said the chain of command took the incident seriously, but the evidence suggests that the correct reporting process was not followed. The man involved was given a minor sanction and asked to give a written apology, but that was all that resulted from that. So she felt as though she didn't have the confidence to report them. These messages, which, as I've said, it started as a friendship. She clearly felt uncomfortable about asking whether, is something wrong here, trying to keep him happy, just 19 years old, and it's her boss. Now, the report says measures to tackle this kind of behaviour have been introduced since. They have been introduced as part of policy that was brought in November 2022.
But what's so interesting about what you described there is to ask the perpetrator to send a letter of apology is the perpetrator accepting that he did this thing, and this thing is a sexual assault and an aggravated sexual assault. He put his hand around her neck, and therefore nobody should be giving him a pen and a piece of paper to say sorry. They should be calling the police. We've got this completely the wrong way around, and it shouldn't be on the 19-year-old to do it. It shouldn't. The army should have done it. It's a shocker. It's an absolutely awful story, and that beautiful young girl, and I know her mother and sister have spoken as well, just have lost her forever because of men who don't know how to behave, and institutions that don't know how to respond to men who don't know how to behave. Just desperate. Thank you, Charlotte, for your report on that. Charlotte Lynch, LBC's reporter. And do we know when the inquest will conclude, or is it to be just?
They were awaiting this report, so now we're expecting to get the next steps about the inquest.
Thank you very much indeed. Such a sad story. We've been talking this hour about Rishi Sunak's announcement. One or two announcements in that speech earlier on today. The announcement about gradually phasing out legal the UK, you will never be able to have cigarettes. Charles. Hello, Charles.
Hi, Sheila. How's things, all right?
Yes, thanks. Yeah.
Good. So I think one thing that hasn't been spoken about, I think in general, I think history teaches us about some of the consequences of a sort of prohibition-led approach to certain things. And I think, one thing, I used to smoke when I was younger, between about 17, 21, 22 or so. Stopped smoking then, but still, if I have a drink here and there, I might have one on occasion. But anyone I know now, or a large portion of the people I know now around my age, sort of mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, whatever it might be, who still smoke, there are many of them who who go in and buy the cigarettes. There's also a lot of people out there who are getting the cigarettes through unconventional or in often cases illegal means, through the cigarettes that are smuggled, cigarettes that have been brought into the country or found their way to the country illegally, and it's a real problem which hasn't really been spoken about in this, certainly not in the light of this policy being announced. And I think without a sort of corollary being asked about, well, how are we going to, on the day where this becomes where there are no more, no route at all for people to buy, for people of certain age to buy certain cigarettes, or if the general sale of cigarettes is hampered, what effect is this going to have on the illegal market?
It's about trying to stop young people from starting at all, really, isn't it? Rather than stopping you or I from having a cigarette if we wanted to.
Well, that's true. But I'm not sure how if it's more prohibitive for younger people to smoke. If you're a young person who's 14 now, and if you're in sixth form, and you're technically not allowed at the age of 18 to go and buy a packet of cigarettes, but there's still cigarettes out there, you will find a packet of cigarettes. It's just that you're more likely to find them in the form of a cheaper.
But I would argue, in what numbers are people likely to do that? Because clearly it's not going to be a silver bullet of a policy. You're quite right, there will be an underground market of some sort. But if you think about, I don't know how old you are, Charles, but when I was a kid, you couldn't, adults even couldn't get their hands on alcohol during the day easily. There were quite strict licensing hours in this country that have gone completely out of the window, haven't they? Massive cultural change there. You've now got alcohol designed for teenagers. They're not saying it's designed for teenagers, but it is designed for teenagers. And you've got, easy access. I mean, I know they're not supposed to buy if they're underage, but there's a million ways to get around that, which they find every day of the week. And what do we find? Loads more young people drinking very early. Loads more older people, adults, drinking at times of the day that they wouldn't normally have drunk. Endless easy access to alcohol wherever you go. It's everywhere. It didn't used to be. And I'll bet you, I don't have any stats to hand, but I bet you, Charles, that means more people drink heavily and more people have access to something that they should limit their access to.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with you on that, but I think also interestingly, I think that also suggests that actually, for example, my age cohort and younger, sort of late 20s, even the early 20s nowadays, are drinking historically low numbers. And I think that one thing that's not been accounted for, had this been announced, funnily enough, had this been announced maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I might have been instinctively more for it, because it did feel that smoking was just culturally ubiquitous. Everyone was doing it all the time, and the indoor smoking, things like the indoor smoking ban, I would go further, and I would ban smoking outdoors in areas that have whether small towns or cities or whatever it might be. I would go further. I think we should have a range of measures to prevent people, but we can't ignore that smoking today isn't what it was. It's not this culturally ubiquitous thing that's just, the health factors are what they are.
It's still quite big, though. It's still quite big, isn't it? There's always a queue of people outside restaurants and cafes and pubs having a fag, and offices having a fag. It's still there.
It's still there, but not anything like to the extent it used to be, and it always will be there to some extent. And I just think if it's purely a public health measure to stop young people falling into bad habits, which is an admirable thing in and of itself, then it is impossible not to ignore. Obesity costs the NHS more.
We don't know for sure. Charles, thank you. You're clearly against the idea of it being banned in that way. Thank you for your call. David Cameron has tweeted about the decision to scrap the second leg of HS2. Here's what he said. Today's decision on HS2 is the wrong one. It will help to fuel the views of those who argue that we can no longer think or act for the long term as a country, that we're heading in the wrong direction. HS2 was about investing for the long term, and bear in mind this is something that she's been explaining yesterday. HS2 was about investing for the long term, bringing the country together, ensuring a more balanced economy and delivering the Northern powerhouse. We achieved historic cross-party support with extensive buy-in from city and local authority leaders across the Midlands and the north of England. Today's announcement throws away 15 years of cross-party consensus, sustained over 6 administrations, and will make it much harder to build consensus for any future long-term projects. All across the world, we see transformative long-term infrastructure projects completed or underway. They show countries on the rise, building for future generations, thinking big and getting things done. I regret this decision, and in years to come, I suspect many will look back at today's announcement and wonder how this once-in-a-generation opportunity was lost. That's David Cameron, former Prime Minister. Doesn't mention the costs, the rising costs of it, which I suspect is what Rishi Sunak would allude to if he were to respond to David Cameron. It's 3:47.
Coming up at 4 on LBC, Tom Swarbrick.
Rishi Sunak wants to persuade you he can be trusted to deliver a brighter future for this country. Based on what?
Tom Swarbrick on LBC. LBC's charity Global's Make Some Noise. Make sure that nobody faces life's toughest challenges alone. And right now, every pound you give online will go twice as far. Thanks to read.co.uk, when you donate to Make Some Noise through the Big Give platform, your donation will be doubled up to a guaranteed £175,000. Visit lbc.co.uk to find out more. Proudly supported by read.co.uk.
Why wouldn't you visit markselectrical.co.uk? They've got the new range of Samsung QLED TVs ready for fast free delivery and installation, such as Samsung's QN90C 4K HDR Smart TV, which comes with £700 cashback when it's bought with a selected soundbar. For Samsung TVs, it has to be markselectrical.co.uk. Why wouldn't you? Offer ends October 24th. T's and C's apply.
Ready to experience the future of hearing care? To forget what you know and embrace the latest in technology. With improved speech understanding, background noise reduction, and a lifetime of aftercare from our expert audiologists. The tech is just the start. Book your free hearing check now at bootshearingcare.com. With you for the future of hearing. With you for life. See bootshearingcare.com for details. One catch. That is one of the greatest catches of all time. One hit. What a shot that is. One wicket. And you have won the World Cup by the barest of margins. When you only have one day, one moment makes all the difference. Every moment that matters from the Cricket World Cup. Extensive highlights of every single game. The ICC Men's Cricket World Cup starts Thursday at 7 on Channel 5 and My5.
The ultra-low emission zone has now expanded and operates across all London boroughs to help clear London's air. If your car, van or motorcycle doesn't meet the ULEZ emission standards, the easiest way to pay the £12.50 ULEZ daily charge is with AutoPay. It's free to register and helps avoid fines. Just search TfL AutoPay. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Welcome to Abel & Cole, where inconvenience is a good thing. We'll only deliver to your area once a week.
It reduces carbon emissions.
Our food costs a bit more.
They fund us fairly.
And our broccoli won't last as long.
Because we don't do preservatives or unnecessary plastic.
An inconvenience store is better for the planet and tastes better too.
Join the thousands of people choosing inconvenience. Search Abel & Cole and order a carbon
Leading Britain's conversation, Sheila Fogarty. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Dave has called from Canary Wharf. Dave, this gradual ban on smoking, you for it?
Yeah, Sheila, yeah, I am for it. I'm up for that. I am.
Do you smoke yourself?
No, I don't smoke. Наручные часы там был определенный повод. Я попробовал, походил, но честно сказать, как-то я настолько отвык от них, в руке что-то болтается, что-то мешает. повышается. И плюс, как-то немножко тяжеловато было.
Ну а вот это понятие статусности для вас имеет какое-либо значение? Что вот все смотрят такие, вау, не, ну это здесь серьезный человек, у него часы стоят 10 тысяч только евро, и с ним надо разговаривать как-то по-особенному, нет?
Нет, у меня немножко другой язык общения людей попроще, поэтому они не смотрят на всякие компании. И, как говорится, поэтому все как-то, да, без часов. Здесь на радио, в телефоне здесь часы, и дома здесь стенки часы, как хватает.
Достаточно, да. Спасибо большое. Кстати, не в первый раз слышу мнение такое вот в жизни среди вот круга моих знакомых, что а зачем мне часы? В принципе, вот телефон же есть. Телефон есть, я, если надо,
Вот поэтому мы это исследование кефирное и проводим.
Ну, давай еще один звоночек, мы успеем. Здравствуйте.
Добрый день.
Добрый.
Ну вот я как-то говорю, что мне очень нравятся классические часы, именно со стрелками и желательно даже механические. Мне в свое время подарили, мне долгое время здесь были классные часы, а вот бабушка в какой-то момент подарила дедушке. Часы, которые бабушка будет заработать на шахте в свое время, обеда. Вот. И в течение много времени их носил как-то вот так вот, они тоже стали семейной какой-то реликвией. Водить, все-таки им больше 40 лет. Вот, планирую их как-то найти мастера достойного, который сможет починить.
Все-таки реанимировать.
Да, они работают, но вот в течение дня могут отставать поприлично, то есть получать. То есть это немножко...
Это немножко, не немножко уже, да. Спасибо большое, Виталий. Ну давай, подводить
Итак,
черту.
друзья, проводим. Значит, смарт-часов среди дозвонившихся радиослушателей нет пока ни у кого. Может быть, и не пока вообще не будет, кто знает. Вот такая вот ситуация. А электронные и карманные часы у нас занимают почетное 3-е место по количеству тех, у кого они есть. Никаких часов не ношу. Это 2-е место. И вечная классика пока что на 1-м месте, причем с серьезным отрывом, друзья.
Это механика.
Это механика. Ну, скажем так, понятно, что есть часы, которые нужно вручную заводить.
Да, есть на батарейках, вот как у меня, но я ее тоже считаю механикой.
Мы это все отнесли к механике.
Со стрелочками, да. Мы прощаемся с вами и не пропустите великолепную четверку уже завтра утром на Радио 4.
В четверг в утренней программе роль педагога в образовательном процессе сложно переоценить. Но каким должен быть настоящий учитель, по мнению самих детей? Пообщаемся с педагогом и учениками одной из таллинских школ. Поговорим о здоровье. Можно ли самостоятельно заметить признаки развития рака? Почему не все посещают обследование и как бороться с этим недугом? Обсудим с семейным врачом. Ученые делают открытия каждый день. Редактор портала наука.err.e расскажет, о чем пишут на этой неделе. Как меняется русский язык и поймут ли друг друга поколения в будущем? Поговорим с учителем и поэтом П.И. Филимоновым. Слушайте в эфире с 6 до 10 часов утра. Ведущие Екатерина Зонова и Петр Сушков. Новый день.
Кефир готов.
I don't smoke, but I'm against the banning, and obviously there are obvious reasons why the ban's there. But I wonder the prevalence of smoking and vaping, and particularly vaping with young with teenager children, young adults. I mean, I'm 31 myself. I wonder whether a lot of it is based on almost an anxiety outlet that I think vaping and smoking provides, which seems to be so prevalent amongst everyone, but obviously younger people. I think I seem to see a lot of cases where people are vaping almost to kind of get through life. And I question whether banning it is ever the right option. We can do things indirectly, raise the cost, taxation, etc. But the root cause of why people are smoking, why young people are vaping, I think needs to be examined more for those reasons. Because I do wonder whether actually there's an element there that people are vaping for the reason of other things like dealing with anxiety and everything that is there. I think that's something that should be looked at.
Dear, George Warwick's just come in and started coughing, Sammy. He's providing sound effects for my phone now.
Very useful.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for that, Sammy. I've been doing a fair amount of coughing myself this hour. No, it's fine. Please don't worry. It's because I've got a nice little button with the word cough on it next to me here, but you don't when you're sitting all the way over there, do you? Have you ever smoked?
Yes, I have.
Brief time, long time?
Brief time, and not particularly in a sustained fashion. To be honest with you, being completely candid with you, after about 3 pints, that's when I'm the awful person. I'm the awful non-smoker who, after about 3 pints, says, I suppose do you mind offering?
You just fancy a cigarette at that point.
Do you know, and the really bad thing is that I really like the smell, which is odd, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm tolerant of the smell, and I'm tolerant of smokers. Like, if somebody was in my house and wanted to have a cigarette, I'd let them.
Oh, I would.
Well, you've got children.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think I would do anyway.
I can't think of a friend who's ever asked to do it. They'd go outside if they would. But if for whatever reason, if it was pouring with rain or something, I wouldn't be bothered if they had a cigarette.
Send him out.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. But that's probably because I grew up in a household where there was smoke. Who knows? Maybe I'm just far too tolerant for my own good. I've never been accused of that before. I'll be back with you tomorrow. If you missed on any of today's show, you can listen back or catch up on Global Play, where you can also rewind live radio, find all of LBC shows to catch up on, as well as all of Global's live radio stations. No coughing from me or Tom from this point on. Coming up at 6 on LBC, it's Andrew Marr, but now here he is, Tom Sorbrick.
Sheila, thank you very much indeed. Afternoon all. Welcome to the show. Before,
be in no doubt, it is time for a change, and we are it.
I am the change candidate, announces the leader of a party that has been in power for 13 years.
We've had 30 years of a political system which incentivises the easy decision, not the right one.
If you've had 5 prime ministers in 7 years, Rishi Sunak has played the last card he has left. Ignore the past, condemn the leadership and decisions of your predecessors, attempt to offer yourself as something radical and as something different. The problem is that every Conservative leader since David Cameron has had to try and do the same. This country definitely needs changing. Is Sunak it?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 4 o'clock, the Mayor of Greater Manchester says his city deserves better after the Prime Minister scrapped the rest of HS2. Andy Burnham says people in Northern England have been ignored following plans to cancel the line between Birmingham and Manchester.
There's a world of difference between a transport plan patched together in hotel rooms at a party conference and a transport plan that has been worked on for years, which is a coherent plan representing the voice of the North and what people here want.
Rishi Sunak has told the Tory party conference every penny of the money saved will be reinvested in other transport projects. The Conservative MP for Buckingham, Greg Smith, has told LBC News he wants the whole high-speed project scrapped.
I get it that it would serve a handful of cities, Birmingham, Manchester, London. But if you talk to many other northern MPs, actually James Grundy, my colleague who represents Lee, he's an opponent of HS2. He's a Greater Manchester Member of Parliament. So there isn't this uniform view across the north of England that HS2 is a good thing.
In his keynote speech, the Prime Minister also announced plans to effectively make smoking illegal for anyone aged 14 and under. It would see the legal smoking age raised every year. A corporate manslaughter investigation has begun following murders carried out by Lucy Letby. The 33-year-old former nurse killed 7 babies and tried to kill 6 others at the Countess of Chester Hospital. Police will consider senior leadership and decision-making to decide whether there was any criminality. A safeguarding review will begin following the death of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif in Woking. An investigation will look into all of the agencies involved, including police, social care and education. Sarah's father, Irfan Sharif, is among 3 people charged with her murder. And Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp wants to see their Premier League defeat at Tottenham replayed. VAR incorrectly ruled out Luis Diaz's goal in what was described as a significant human error. In the City, a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 79 points at 73.90. The pound buys $1.21 and €1.15. LBC weather, rain lingering in northern England and Northern Ireland tonight. Spells of rain also moving into the northwest, a low of 6. Cloudy with more outbreaks of rain across much of the UK tomorrow, mainly dry in the south and southeast, a high of 20 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Coles.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Tom Swarbrick.
Just got 4. Hello, afternoon, welcome to the show. Tom Swarbrick at Drive here on LBC. Hope you find you very well. Coming up,
Cheshire Constabulary have confirmed the focus of the investigation is senior leadership and decision-making.
police have launched a corporate manslaughter investigation into the Countess of Chester Hospital where killer nurse Lucy Letby worked. It will look at whether there was any criminality among senior hospital bosses. Details to come. And as the unofficial home of the pub, this programme mourns the slow erosion of the great institution of popping in for a pint. We'll be joined later in the show by the boss of Wetherspoons, Tim Martin.
Call 0345 60 60 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
Very good afternoon to you. Well, we called it, folks. It wasn't a difficult call to make, to be honest, because when we said at the back end of last week that Sunak was going to jettison the last 13 years of Conservative government and present himself as the change candidate, the person who can own and make the future brighter, we did so pretty safe in the knowledge that it is the only card left that he can play. The only Conservative achievement he drew upon in his conference speech earlier on, after 13 years, was in the classroom. Everything else was to rail against the past. That there was a consensus over the last 30 years that was wrong.
If we are to create change and drive growth across our country, then we must get our infrastructure right. A false consensus has taken root that all that matters are links between our big conurbations. This consensus said that our national economic regeneration should be driven by cities at the exclusion of everywhere else. It said that the most important connections those cities could have was to London and not anywhere else. And it said that the only links that mattered were north to south, not east to west. What we really need, though, is better transport connections in the north. A new network north that will join up our great towns and cities in the north and Midlands. I wanted to come here to Manchester today to say that this will be our priority, our focus, our project. HS2 is the ultimate example of the old consensus.
That is the foundation on which he feels able to build his own brand spanking new version of the future. Image. And what's his radical version of the future based on that speech? Isn't it kind of more of the same, if we're honest? Net zero by 2050 hasn't been ditched, it's been tweaked, rightly in my view. HS2 is still being built, just not to Manchester now, and I can, to be honest, I can understand that argument. But being the big change, it's a difficult claim to make. I'm the radical change that makes tweaks for the future. Do not look back there at the past. They all got it wrong. to do it because of furlough and not the past, because we don't like talking about the past, so maybe because I'm not Keir Starmer. The obvious tension here is that the big decisions he is making is a change from decisions his party in government made, that they got it all wrong, whilst also broadly sticking to it. Net zero is happening, HS2 hasn't been totally scrapped. It is, though, he says, the ultimate example of the old consensus. The answer to not building HS2 to Manchester is more money for things that are already there. Upgrade the A1, the A2, the A5, the M6. We'll bring back the Don Valley line, he said, resuscitating the past as part of the future. So that old consensus was bad, but not that bad. Here's the bit where Rishi Sunak presents himself as the candidate for change.
At the next election, the choice the people face is bigger than party politics. Do we want a government committed to making long-term decisions, prepared to be radical in the face of challenges and to take on vested interests? Or do we want to stand still and quietly accept more of the same? You either think this country needs to change or you don't. And if you do, you should stand with me and every person in this hall. You should stand with the Conservatives. Today, this party put the needs of the British people first. We've taken the decision many should have done, but didn't. We've ended the HS2 drama and in its place will embark on a full-scale national reinvestment in the infrastructure people actually use and want and the skilled workforce who will build it. And no more hiding. No more pretending in the face of overwhelming evidence. Too many sons and daughters, fathers and mothers are lost to lung cancer, heart disease, dementia, stillbirth, and we can change that. Today we went beyond ideology and put the people first again, and committed ourselves to ensure our children and grandchildren can be the first generation that doesn't have to suffer the false choice to quit smoking or not, because they will never have started. Today we set a course for our education system that will set our children up for the opportunities of the future. No more rip-off degrees, no more low aspiration, no more denigration of technical education, just the best education system in the Western world. We will be bold, we will be radical, we will face resistance, and we will meet it. We will give the country what it so sorely needs and yet too often has been denied. A government prepared to make long-term decisions so that we can build a brighter future for everyone. Be in no doubt, it is time for a change, and we are it. Thank you.
You can understand why the Labour Party social media feed has clipped up the bit where Sunak says it is time for change. He is absolutely right that the country needs change. Everything feels like it's falling apart. So of what you've heard of the change Sunak wants to be, is he the change you want? And crucially, compared to the change you think Starmer might be, is Sunak the change you want? Every single Tory Prime Minister since David Cameron has made the same kind of argument in order to try and make their government seem new. So unsure about their record as a governing party that they are now at the point of saying the whole consensus was wrong. And yet you're asked to trust Sunak to make the change because of, well, not the past. He didn't agree with all that. As one MP pointed out, you can travel to the 40 imaginary new hospitals on the imaginary new roads in the Midlands. If Sunak were proud of the record in government, he'd be talking about it and using it as a platform to build on his own plan for the future. He isn't. He's trying gently to put a bullet in the past and is hoping that you won't notice that it's not there. 0345 6060 973. Answer this if you can. Trust Sunak to make that change because... And a note here, there will be more, there has to be more, as we run up to a general election. But nothing in that speech described anything to do with taxes being at their highest level since the Second World War, or, I think, crucially, housing. There was no mention of it in the speech at all. That is one thing that fundamentally needs to change in this country, about which we will have to hear more from Rishi Sunak if he wants to be Prime Minister, but this, it was deemed, was not the moment. 0345 6060 973. I want to bring you a flavour of the past that has just come roaring back like a high-speed train. David Cameron, this afternoon, has been tweeting about the decision to scrap that part of HS2. It's a long old tweet, but I'll read it because it's interesting. Today's decision on HS2, says Cameron, is the wrong one. It will help to fuel the views of those who argue that we can no longer think or act for the long term as a country, that we are heading in the wrong direction. HS2 was about investing for the long term, bringing the country together, ensuring a more balanced economy and delivering the Northern powerhouse. We achieved historic cross-party support with extensive buy-in from city and local authority leaders across the Midlands and north of England. Today's announcement throws away 15 years of cross-party consensus sustained over 6 administrations and will make it much harder to build consensus for any future long-term projects. All across the world, says Cameron, we see transformative long-term infrastructure projects completed or underway. They show countries on the rise, building for future generations, thinking big and getting things done. I regret this decision, and in years to come, I suspect many will look back at today's announcement and wonder how this once-in-a-generation opportunity was lost. I think Cameron's pretty furious, actually, because he's used the consensus word twice to find a way of gently sticking 2 fingers up to Rishi Sunak, saying you've got this catastrophically wrong, bud, and don't think you can wipe away my record as time of Prime Minister just to make your march to the next general election seem a little bit easier, to try and jettison everything because you think it was the wrong consensus, that we got it all wrong, so that you can present yourself as the candidate of change. You can't. I won't let you. The past is still here. 0345 6060 973. I have to say, some of what Sunak has announced on net zero I think is right. I can buy the argument that maybe times have moved on from HS2 and it was getting very expensive, and maybe it wasn't the right way of delivering what people need, which is change in how they get around, particularly the areas in which they live and work. So I'm here to understand the arguments that are being made. Do you trust that the money that was going to go on HS2 will be spent on the things that he is talking about? What's the record of that? Oh no, but there is no record. The record has been scrubbed. We're starting again. Trust Rishi Sunak to make the change the country needs, because 0345 6060 973. To your calls after this. 4:14.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave. Golf, because of the strike, most train companies aren't running any services at all for the rest of the day. A severely reduced service is running on London North Eastern Railway, Greater Anglia, Great Western Railway and South Western Railway. The tube strike is off, but there are severe delays on the Circle line because of cancellations. On the roads, there are long delays on the M25 clockwise from junction 29 for Romford over the Key E2 bridge to junction 1A for Dartford after an accident earlier, but all the lanes are open now. There are queues in Pimlico. Vauxhall Bridge Road westbound is closed from Drummond Gate to Rampayne Street because of an accident, and it's slow in Brixton. Cold Harbour Lane stays closed in both directions between Moorland Road and Valencia Place. That's because of the police investigation.
This is LBC.
Ready to experience the future of hearing care? To forget what you know and embrace the latest in technology. With improved speech understanding, background noise reduction, and a lifetime of aftercare from our expert audiologists. The tech is just the start. Book your free hearing check now at bootshearingcare.com. With you for the future of hearing. With you for life. See bootshearingcare.com for details.
Call Tom Swarbrick 0345 6060 973 LBC.
At Anna Money, we're searching for a sound to represent the joy you feel when your business gets paid. Could it be a squirrel sneezing? No. Is it the sound of my nephew's laughter? Stop. Terrifying. Yes, that's it. A woof. It's a lovely docky woof. Simple, happy, life-affirming. The Anna business account chases your invoices for you. And now, it woofs when you get paid. That's the sound of a happy business. Search Anna Money to find out more.
At Co-op, members can get £5 off when they buy 3 bottles of wine. White, red, rosé or fizz. We've got it all with over 200 wines to choose from. So whatever your tipple is, and whoever you're enjoying it with, we've got you covered. Pop into your local Co-op today. And 17th of October, selected products subject to availability, member price valid in store only. Please drink responsibly, 18 plus.
Burrito, please.
Go large free of charge.
Go on then.
Complimentary extra beef.
Brilliant.
Chips and guac, footlong churros and a serenade from a mariachi band on the house.
Thanks.
Everyone loves an upgrade. And when you buy the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 now, you can claim Galaxy Buds 2 Pro, an S Pen, slim case, and a super fast charger on us. Together worth £318. We call it the ultimate upgrade. Buy before 31st of October from a participating retailer. Claim on website within 30 days of purchase. T's and C's apply.
This is the sound of a grade 8 harpist who also has time to run their own bakery. Thanks to Intuit QuickBooks automated invoice reminders, she never has to chase payments. So suppliers can never pull on her strings. Get peace of mind. Get QuickBooks. Not available on self-employed.
At Lidl, we're big on freshness. So if you're not 100% happy with our fruit and veg, we'll give you your money back. That's Lidl's Fresh Promise. And we think it's pretty fresh thinking. As fresh as a daisy. Or like a plum. Quality and always Lidl on price. Excludes NI. See lidl.co.uk/fresh for details.
You'll only remember that sound if you're from the 90s. A time when the World Wide Web was still taking off. Dial-up was the thing. And McDonald's started cracking only free-range eggs, fresh every day, to use in all our McMuffins. It's just one of the little changes McDonald's have been making to the way we source our food over the years. McDonald's. Change a little, change a lot.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
4:18 is the time. Let's get into calls of what you made of it. Rob's in Leeds. Hi, Rob.
Hi, how you doing?
Good stuff. Sunak. Trust him to make the change?
What are we trying to change? I think that's probably the key question. I mean, for me, I've heard him described before as the best of a bad bunch. I think that's unfair. And I think he's clearly somebody with gravitas. He's somebody that's well educated, and I think he's well qualified for the job. And the idea that he's trying to brush things under the carpet over the last 13, 15 years of Tory government I don't think that's right. I think the problem with big public infrastructure projects like HS2 is the business case was put forward 15 years ago around shorter travel times, working on trains, availability to internet, and the reality is, certainly post-COVID, it's a nonsense. We can all work from hotspots and mobile phones and all the rest of it. So it's just that these things take so long to come to fruition. The business case changes, and like any business now, the return on investment's changed.
So does it matter to you at all that the people that put this forward argued for it, built consensus over 6 administrations, and lots of different political parties were the Conservatives, if you think it was all wrong anyway?
It's kind of a hindsight's a wonderful thing. We didn't know the pandemic was coming. We didn't know the way that everybody was going to work was going to completely change. So no, I think the whole situation in terms of difficult decisions need to be made at times of crisis, and I think as a government, again with hindsight, some things could have been different, but overall, good decisions were made in a very difficult time, and these sorts of things around this project is just an example of things move on. Six as you say, 6 terms, 6 iterations of that.
But it's not a given that things have moved on to the point where HS2 to Manchester would always be a bad thing. There are plenty of people, you've heard David Cameron argue that it would still be a good thing to do. So lots of people can disagree about whether this is the right thing to do.
Agreed. I think Richi's point. I've got family in Sheffield. There's been talk of drilling through the Pennines to get to Manchester quicker from Sheffield to Manchester rather than trying to head over Snake Pass where the minute a bit of ice drops it closes. I grew up with St Anne's, over in the northwest, and spent a lot of time in Manchester. Moved to Leeds. Getting from Leeds to Manchester, absolute nightmare. On the
be, things have changed. He doesn't stick to. The Tory party don't see things through. So I think that you've got to think of the rhetoric from the other side that sort of says, well, no, then now, none of this affects Rishi. He's this guy, he's well qualified, he's not short of a few quid, and therefore, none of this matters to him. All these towns in the north, and it's all rhetoric, and it's just, it's more politics, in my opinion, in terms of trying to do that.
Well, interesting, really interesting, and thank you for the call. The other part of this is that it is going to emerge, I think, is the way in which this is going to be quite presidential. It's going to be Rishi Sunak against Keir Starmer. It's not going to be Conservative against Labour, or at least that's the way in which the Conservatives would probably like it to be, because they don't want to have to talk about their record in government that much, because as Sunak used it in his speech, all he really spoke about was a bit around education. You think of everything that's gone on in the last 13 years, and they don't really use it as a springboard to say this is why you should vote for us. So they're not going to. It's just going to be about him. Nicola's in Manchester. Hi, Nicola.
Hi. Well, I live in Manchester. I'm trying to get back there right now. I'm currently sat at the side of the A1. Having just got off the A14, sat there for 30 minutes. It's just been extended to my journey. Because for all the improvements that they've made on the A14, it hasn't actually made it any better.
Well, the money's coming, Nicola. 34 million
really?
quid. Yeah, oh yes. All the money from HS2 North, it's coming to you.
I'm not sure that it will, but it's one of my problems with... I do agree with Rishi Sunak today on cancelling HS2. That's the first thing, but I think they need to cancel the whole project because it's a ridiculous project. Manchester in the north doesn't need to be an annex to London. We don't want to go to London. Manchester's got the potential, and Liverpool and Sheffield and Leeds, they've got the potential to be better than London.
Yeah.
It's 11 miles from Deansgate into the Peak District. You cannot do that of a weekend in Manchester. In London, you can't get outside the M25 within 11 miles. And the 11 miles will cost you an absolute fortune to do because of you, Les, and you've got to be in the right car.
Nicola, you don't need to persuade me that Manchester is a great city.
So Manchester is fantastic and it's got the potential to be better. The reason that people don't base their businesses here is because they can't move their staff to Manchester because we haven't got the backup of great health services. We haven't got great health in the north. We haven't got great schools. We haven't got enough grammar schools. We haven't got enough of anything, actually, of any public services. And the money from HS2 would be much better spent by basically by bringing us up to speed with the rest of London and the public services you have within the M25.
So this decision is something... Are you a natural Tory voter, Nicola? Is this something that you would...
No, I'm not. I'm a swing voter. So my first vote, I'm 44, I'm about to be 45. My first vote was for Tony Blair.
Right.
And I'm educated by a Labour government.
Yeah.
But my education is weak. It's weak at the very best of it. It's weak. I've got like 4 GCSEs.
But
it's not stopped me.
No, good on you. Unfortunately, I think it sounds like the A roads have stopped you this afternoon.
The A roads are constantly stopping me.
And the issue, Nicola, then is for Sunak is can he persuade people like